Hi everyone, it's Tiffany from My Inner Temple and the New Earth Alchemist Academy. In this video, I want to share with you some information about astral entities. Very much like the aura, where you have multiple layers overlapping each other to create your auric field, the same thing with reality. There's a physical reality, and then there are many realities and dimensions that overlaps your current dimension. And this is where sometimes people can see fairies, right? Because it comes from another realm. Sometimes you can see entities such as parasites or just other astral entities from another dimension. Then you have the dream dimension, which is also another overlap of your current dimension. I look at it very much like the flower of life, like the symbol, where all these dimensions are separate yet overlap with each other. And so astral entities are important to know because they can affect our well-being and consciousness positively and negatively. When it comes to astral entities, they are different than implant. In my definition, an implant is something that's like a program, that is an energetic implant in your body that repeats a certain thoughts or stop you from doing certain things or keep you stuck. It's very mechanical and it has the same function over and over again. Whereas an astral entity, if you have an attachment or a parasite, it might be an entity that has its own consciousness. So these entities, I feel, is harder for people to get rid of because it's almost like you're having an internal battle with these entities because they have their own consciousness. And there are astral entities that are service to others as well, don't get me wrong. There are those that are here to help you, that are here to serve you, or to help you align with the highest frequency of love and light. Usually astral entities are born or created through a repeating thought pattern attached with an intense emotion. So right now I'm going to talk more into the negative entities because we don't really want to get rid of positive entities anyway. So what becomes a problem for us right now is the negative ones that sucks your energies, that creates patterns and thought forms that are really sticky and hard to get rid of. And so when you have a repeating pattern such as a trauma, like if someone keeps telling you you're not good enough, and then something happened to cause you to have a burst of energy or a reaction, sometimes this entity can be created through that process itself, or it can be created through an attachment. So they might sense that, ooh, there's food here, there's energy that can serve me, so the entity will come and attach itself to your auric field or your energy system. An entity might also be passed down through ancestral karma or ancestral trauma as well. So I would say try not to put whatever you're working with in a box. Always become really open to tap in to see where this entity is coming from. How did it get there? So once again, the entity themselves can be service to others, such as, flower phase. They are there to help your garden bloom, but then there's the astral entity that can attack you or drain your energy. So usually in my experience is that the positive beings are generally here to help you with activations or learning or healing, whereas the negative entities can cause you to feel stuck and help you lose connection to your soul so that you too identify with the physical. You become separated from the higher entities, or you become too separated from your higher self. So these negative entities can also feed off of emotions. It can inject thoughts into your host or the host, and because of that, it's very hard to tell when there's an entity at play because it might feel like that entity's consciousness is just you, it's just part of your consciousness. And the shamanic view on a lot of mental illnesses is that some of these mental illnesses are caused by entities, or caused by fragmentation of our consciousness. So in my experience in my life, I have experienced entities as well. And this is why in my practice, sometimes I do deal with the removal of entities because I've had experience with them. And I can tell you is night and day. So when I was really trapped in depression, there was always this voice in my head that tells me I'm not good enough, I should kill myself. And I was like, where is this voice coming from? It's torturous. You can't really turn it off sometimes. And I remember, I will talk about it in the later in the video, that once I got rid of that entity, I never have those thoughts anymore. It's never in my consciousness. So from there, I realized that, you know what, entities can be real. Now, this was before I became spiritually awakened to where I am now. So it's a very interesting experience. Always be really open-minded, but at the same time, don't be afraid of these entities. There's always light entities to help you remove them. So springing into action, how do we break out of these attachments with these entities? So number one is awareness. This is why meditation is so helpful, because you start to become conscious of your thoughts, and then you start to think, wow, this thought comes up a lot, and it seems like I can't even control it sometimes. Then you're like, wow, is that thought even mine? And then sometimes you start talking to that voice, which people think is crazy, but I think it's just a very normal experience as a human being. You need to learn how to self-talk to yourself. From there, you start to realize that maybe I have an entity because it's torturous, it's not going away. And from my experience, it really takes control over you sometimes, where you just dip into that depression and then that voice take over. And the second step is to focus on positive action. So the beings are there because you are compliant energetically with this entity. So the entity is what? Feeding on your energy, feeding on your negative emotions and your thoughts. So think about it like ants in your house. If there's no food in the house, then they're gonna leave because they need to survive and you're not providing them their needs, so they're gonna leave. So you want to focus on positive action. So doing things that will raise your vibration and working with light entities. So whether you work with archangels or Shiva and Shakti, Kali, or you work with Virgin Mother Mary or Mother Kuan Yin or Buddha, call down these ascended masters and light entities to help you release this attachment to this service to self entity. You also want to release fear in regards to these beings. A lot of people say, oh, I can't go there, I can't, it's too scary, I'm scared of ghosts, I'm scared of entity. That's part of your journey. Why this entity is in your field is for you to release fear. Humanity right now is so dominated by the emotion of fear. This is progression to help you release that fear. They are just beings in this universe. They are here to help you step back into your power. Instead of them driving the car, you are kicking them out and you're like, I'm driving this car now. So it's about empowering yourself and taking your power back. I'll give you 3 examples from my past, how I've dealt with astral entities. So number 1 is from trauma, like I've mentioned, from depression and physical abuse trauma that have caused me to become so fragmented, so fragile, and so vulnerable energetically that I remember one day I was just like, I've had enough, and I was crying so hard on the floor, and there was so much pain in my body because I just couldn't get rid of this voice in my head. And I remember that was one of the first few experiences where I realized that I can ask for help. the positive entities are not going to come in and intervene unless you give them permission and ask for help. So I remember in that moment of distress when I'm on the floor just intensely having a breakdown and crying, I asked my guides, I'm like, angels and Christ and my spirit guides, please help me. I'm in pain. I can't get rid of this voice in my head. I'm in so much pain. And I just keep like asking for help. And all of a sudden, I felt this relief. I was crying, screaming. And all of a sudden, I just feel this lightness and I stopped crying. And then there was like a breath of relief. And I feel so much lighter. I feel like instead of being like heavy, I was like in clouds. And at that moment, I didn't register that experience too much of what was happening. But looking back, I'm like, that was my guides coming in to intervene and help me remove that entity. Because after that experience, that I'm not good enough voice, that vicious energy that is in my brain was never there anymore. So now, back to the present moment, yes, I still have self-doubt. It's really normal to have some of those thoughts, but it's not like vicious. It's not like, it's a lot more manageable. The second experience I want to share with you is sometimes it has to do with karma when astral entities show up. So when my third eye was really activated because of my practices, one day I was catching this dark shadow following me. And I didn't feel like it was like the parasites that are here to attach and to suck my energy. So I'm like, well, what kind of entity is this? It doesn't feel positive. It doesn't feel negative. It feels neutral, but it wants something from me because it's following me. So tapping into a meditation with my mentor and teacher at the time, she helped me ask questions like, why is this entity here? And then I found out that in one of my lifetime, I hurt the soul really badly. So now an opportunity came up where I am able to ask for forgiveness and resolve some of that karmic debt with the soul. And my mentor facilitated to help me ask Buddha's energy, consciousness to come in and help facilitate the process. And I saw Buddha himself as a very big being, and with me on one hand, the other person on one hand, and we were mediating. We were having a karmic conference with each other. And I see this red energetic cord, and once that soul was finally able to forgive me, Buddha severed the cord, and ever since that healing meditation, I've never seen that entity ever again. The third experience that I have is usually because of my own laziness of not creating enough energetic protection when I'm doing spiritual healing. So in the beginning of my practice, sometimes I say, oh yeah, I'm feeling fine now, I don't need protection. So I'll go on and lead a shadow work workshop or help people heal their inner child, and that's like really heavy energy, and I didn't really protect myself. And that day, there was so much release that went on with the group. I started to feel it during the workshop, and I'm like, okay, it's probably nothing. I got home, and about 2 a.m. in the morning, I couldn't sleep, and I felt that psychic attack where there was this entity, and it looks like a beetle, but it has like sharp fangs, and it was like attached to my back like a leech, like and it was so painful. Like I can feel the fangs in my energetic body. It feels like fire's burning, there's acid, and it was so painful. And at first I tried to remove it, like by bringing my astral body out to rip it off, but that was even worse. It was more painful, and it actually latches on even harder. So from there, I have to ask, okay, how can I remove this entity without fighting it, without resisting it? Because then I'm giving it more energy to fight with me. So from there, instead of focusing on removing it, I just put more love and light into my body, asking my guides to please come and help me. I've learned my lesson, not having energy protection, and really asking them to help me with this process, give me some guidance and step on how to remove this entity. And honestly, it took me like almost 2 hours to remove the entity. By the time I was done, I think it was like 3:30 or 4 a.m. when I was finally able to send that entity away from my energy field. And from there, I've learned my lesson. And sometimes I will still forget or not do enough protection that I will still be able to see entities lingering in my space. But at least now I know what to do, and the next time when I catch myself wanting to be lazy or skip steps again, I'm like, nope, don't do that. It's not worth it. So those are the 3 experiences that I've had with astral entities, from trauma, from karma, and from a lack of energy protection. Sometimes you might also pick up these entities by being in the dream time, some dream realm as well. If you're not cautious or conscious, sometimes you pick up entities. And a lot of people are afraid, like, oh my God, I'm attached. There's an entity attached to me. It's like, don't worry, like, it happens. It doesn't mean that something is wrong with you. It doesn't mean that you did something wrong. It's just like going out into the forest. Sometimes a bug lands on your shoulder. It's part of the energetics, but know that, don't be afraid. Try not to engage with that entity too much. Try not to be in a conversation with that entity, because sometimes they can draw you in even further. The simple step to get rid of service to self, astral entities, is to declare to yourself that I am a being of love, light, peace, and harmony. I am here to serve humanity in love, peace, light, and harmony. And you want to bring in as much loving thoughts and loving light into your body. Basically, there was a story when I was young. There's this man holding on to his coat because it's windy, and then the cloud blows even harder, and the harder the cloud blows, the harder the man hold on to his coat. And then the sun has a different approach. The sun warms itself up, and then that person just take off his coat. So gentle with no resistance. So you want to be the sun. So then when you bring in that light and that warmth and love, the entity just be like, oh, okay, there's no more things to feed on. They will fall off and they will go back to their dimension. Or sometimes I ask Archangel Michael to come and guide this entity. It's very individual based, so don't be afraid. And also, if you're not experienced with energy healing or entity healing, do it under the guidance of a teacher. So find a shaman that you trust, find a spiritual healer that you trust, to work with these entities, because sometimes they can be quite serious, and it's better to do it under a guidance of someone that have experience, that know what they're doing. Thank you very much for sticking with me through this long video. I did have a lot to share, so this video is much longer than I intended, but I hope that it's been helpful and to bring in some positive action energy into you, to be not afraid of these entities, and just know that there are ways to release yourself from these attachments. Thank you so much for watching today. If you're interested in more healing videos, starseeds videos, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good week. Bye.